Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Cal Performances and Goldman School of Public Policy event to celebrate my astonishing, multi-gifted, and dear friend, Bob Reich. I'm Arlie Hochschild, Professor Emerita of Sociology here at UC Berkeley, and I'm thrilled to have the honor of interviewing Bob tonight. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. As always, please take a moment to silence your phones. Our conversation will be about an hour long, and I'm pleased to reveal that we have a little surprise planned at the end of this event.
Well, that worries me.
Yeah. And now, let me introduce Bob Reich. Educated at Dartmouth, Oxford, and Yale, Bob has served under 3 administrations, Presidents Ford, Carter, and from 1993 to 1997 as Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. He was also the Economic Transition Advisor, member of the board of Barack Obama. Time magazine described him as one of the 10 most effective cabinet secretaries of the last century. He got us the Family and Medical Leave Act. And raised the minimum wage. During his 17-year tenure at the Goldman School, he has taught well over 10,000 students. And reached millions more through his Substack, newsletter, and Wealth and Poverty class, freely available on YouTube. He has published 18 best-selling books, including The Common Good, Saving Capitalism, Aftershock, Supercapitalism, and his latest, The System, Who Rigged It, How We Fix It. He's also published a book of cartoons called Economics in Wonderland. So that makes 19. He's translated into 22 languages. At the end of this semester, Professor Reich is officially retiring from his full-time teaching position at UC in the Goldman School, and we here at Zellerbach Hall tonight are dedicated to celebrating Bob's time with us as a full-time instructor. And we'll talk about some of his concerns and hopes about the nation. So let's count all of his roles: writer, scholar, cartoonist, actor. At Dartmouth, as an undergrad, he acted the comic character of Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream. Bottom turned into a donkey, so Bottom a Democrat? He's been a film director. His highly popular Netflix documentaries, Saving Capitalism and Inequality for All, for example. He's an institution builder. He co-founded Inequality Media and co-created the Economic Policy Institute and the American Prospect. He's a dancer. We've probably all seen his Tax the Rich shuffle. And he's a singer. You know, I can see clearly now. He's a media sensation. He has millions of followers on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and actually he has received 46 million Facebook views. One person, many roles. So my first question is, are you really one person? No multiple family disorder, multiple personality disorder. This. So I'm going to be one. So,
Arlie, could you start again?
yes.
No. Can I just say that Arlie Hochschild is one of my favorite people in the world. She is brilliant. And a great writer, and also an important writer. And I don't know if we're going to have enough time to get into any of your stuff tonight, Arlie, but I just want you to know that, all right? Very important.
Okay. So I'm interested in the way you combine seriousness with humor. You focus on the most serious of subjects, the concentration of wealth in the United States, the potential dangers democracy is in. And yet you seem to take us to reality through humor a number of times. So you joke us into it. Could you speak a little about that?
No, because I don't really understand it. I do believe that a spoonful of sugar does help the medicine go down. And when I write, and particularly when I teach, I do want to use, and it's self-deprecating humor, Arlie. That's really the difference. I take the subject matter, I take the issues extremely seriously, but I don't take myself all that seriously. That's right. I think people appreciate self-deprecating humor. I sometimes, I was thinking as you were going through my books, my books are the kind of books that once you put them down, you can't pick them up. And that's... and that is
self-deprecating humor.
No, but that's true, and it's also. I think in Washington, my years in Washington, I was aware that people would they didn't take the issue seriously enough, and they took themselves too seriously. Yeah. And I really vowed that I would not do that.
Yeah. But even as a kid, didn't you collect New Yorker cartoons and you submitted them to the New Yorker?
Yes, I papered the entire walls of my bedroom with New Yorker rejection slips.
So the self-deprecation started early, yeah. We're getting into this, yeah. So you aim to reach out to young people. And a lot of people say, oh, the younger too, they're giving up, they're despairing. What can one person do in climate change and or escapism? You shared with me a while ago a list of what you thought got in the way of seriously engaging the issues of the day. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it seems to me that many of us, and I talk to my students about this, we use 4 mechanisms that allow us to avoid the work of getting on with what must be done, whether it's climate change or homelessness or any of the other issues that we're constantly confronted with. And these work avoidance mechanisms are really powerful, and they are ubiquitous. and we use them whether we are conscious or not of using them. One major work avoidance mechanism that we saw for years with climate change, for example, was denial. We use denial all the time, and if that doesn't work, many of us then move to the next one, which is a kind of a, not so much denial, but it's escapism. That is, the problem may exist, but it's not going to affect me, or I can escape from it, or the people I love can escape from it. And I think that those of us who are living lives of privilege, who are in bubbles like Berkeley, we do use escapism quite a lot, whether we appreciate it or not. And then the third mechanism for work avoidance is scapegoating. We say, well, we're not going to deny that it exists, the global warming, or even let's take something as personal as my roommate has an eating disorder or a problem with his boyfriend or her girlfriend. I'm not denying it and I'm not escaping from it, but I'm scapegoating in the sense that they're responsible for this.
Yeah.
They did it to themselves. And the fourth, and I think in many ways the most dangerous mechanism for avoiding the work that needs to be done, and I fear it more than any other mechanism, is cynicism.
Oh.
That nothing can be done.
No.
That the forces of whatever are too great, that the problem seems too daunting.
Right.
And what I hope, and I don't directly talk to my students about this, I indirectly, it's part of the subtext or the underlying pedagogy. What I hope is that they feel courage and agency, that they
Right.
feel
Right.
that they actually have the power
Yeah.
to change things.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And it's as if you can still have fun and be a whole person and wake up the next morning with a sense of purpose and calling. And it doesn't mean you can't have fun and be a whole person.
Well, you have to have fun.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you burn out.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Okay.
you will. And I know of
So
some
it's-
former students who have, with great noble aims, they've taken on some big problems in the world, in the country, in society, but they have forgotten the part of themselves that needs to be nourished, needs to have fun, needs to take a rest,
Yeah.
and they burn out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they,
So the humor is anti-burnout in a way. Just keep going and putting seriousness and humor together.
well, there's, it's interesting. Years ago, I did work, when I was Secretary of Labor, I worked so hard that I faced burnout. I mean, I saw it coming. I was seeing nothing of my kids. I was working 12 hours a day. And then I remember giving a speech to a big union gathering. And I had asked, or maybe the people who were arranging the speech had arranged that as I gave the speech, there would in the background be that song from Les Mis. Da, 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 da. And it would get louder and louder. When you see the, whatever that is, I can't remember that. You remember that? And as I reached the kind of intensity of my speech, my commitment, my trying to get them, this would be loud and, well, it worked in the sense that they were just this, thousands of people, union workers, they were up on top of their chairs, they were cheering, and I was yelling, and they were cheering, and the music was loud, and suddenly, but I realized that this was part of the problem. I was helping them avoid the work. I was becoming a kind of messianic figure. I was burning out. I was trying to get them to be inspired, but I was not putting the work back on them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's fascinating.
And it really was a moment where I just had to reevaluate how I thought about work.
Wow. Wonderful.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it completely does.
It's hard to explain.
Well, what you're doing is saying, did you feel like alone in that? You wanted to, in a way, connect with them.
Leadership.
Yeah.
It is really about helping people take responsibility.
Yeah.
And not being the one, the leader who is the great person.
Yeah. In a way, I was going to ask you how being in the Beltway kind of changed you, but this is part of an answer, I guess.
It didn't make me cynical, Arlie. It really didn't. I left Washington very positive. I met some wonderful people. I felt that most members of Congress I met and worked with wanted to do the right thing. Now, I'm not sure I would say that now, because I think and I don't want to make this too much of a partisan vision or fear, but I do think the Republican Party has become something very different from what I knew 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It is, in many respects, at least the formal, official Republican Party has turned into a very dangerous anti-democracy movement. But it wasn't 30 years ago, and I still relish some of those relationships.
Wow. So here's a challenge for you. We have the next election coming up, 2024. You're writing the Democratic platform. What's on it?
Number one, win the presidency. And both houses of Congress, if you possibly can. But I also think that the underlying theme, and I tried to sell in my own limited way, unsuccessfully, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama on this. The underlying theme is that in order for capitalism to be compatible with democracy, you can't have too much inequality of income and wealth. You've got to make sure that democracy is in the driver's seat rather than acquisitiveness and greed and capitalism in its worst sense. And that means, once you accept that principle and once you sell that idea, many other things fall into place.
But what would be your, say, top 3 priorities? So, taxation of the rich?
Well, if you'd like to go there, I'm happy to go there. But I think the basic priority, again, this goes back to inequality. I think the problem is, for the society we live in, that there is too much wealth and power at the top. Now, wealth, don't get me wrong, wealth is not a zero-sum game. That is, just because there are people who have a lot of money at the top doesn't mean that a lot of other people have to be poor. It's not dollar for dollar. You can have a lot of wealth at the top and everybody can become wealthier. The problem is that wealth is intimately connected to power, and power is a zero-sum game. Power at the top, or wherever it is, means less anyplace else. Yeah. And that is the underlying corrosion of the system that I've seen. Money in politics is corrosive. money coming from wealthy people, from big corporations, undermines the integrity of the system. It corrupts the system. It makes people feel that the system is rigged. It turns a lot of people, as it has, particularly those who have not got ahead. And this is the research you have done is directly relevant to this, and I salute you for it. It's wonderful, wonderful, important work that Arlie has done. You have a working class in America who has not had don't have a college degree. They don't have college degrees, and they have not, in 40 years, had an increase in their purchasing power. They've basically been stagnant, and their children, unlike what we saw in the first 30 years after the Second World War, where everybody went up together. You have this large and desperate in many respects.
And is it the Democratic Party as well as the Republican?
Well, the Democratic Party, what I saw, Arlie, is the Democratic Party basically abandoning the working class.
Okay.
The Republican Party, ironically, is now a party that represents, in the most bastardized term, represents the working class. But what they actually are doing is taking the grievances and anger and frustrations and anxieties of the working class and channeling them into a lot of very ugly stuff.
And giving them culture and taking away money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my advice to Democrats, to an aspiring Democratic president or Democratic politicians, is look at the question of fairness, of equal opportunity, of the basic issues that this country has so, I think, in many important ways, accomplished a great deal on, but understand that the difference between today and 40 years ago is that you've got a stranded working class. And that stranded working class doesn't know where to turn.
Yeah.
It will go into, if there's no other place to turn, it will go toward racism, misogyny, xenophobia, and you name it.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Yeah. Wonderful.
Did you say wonderful? No.
Your analysis is wonderful. But we're not letting the Democratic Party off the hook on this. So,
the Democratic Party cannot be let off the hook.
Yeah.
When I was in the Clinton administration, I saw, and Bill Clinton surrounded himself with a lot of very able people, and I liked them personally. But what they wanted to do was open the country to trade, but not just open, not intellectual property to trade, but not any kind of global sort of transfer of wealth. What they really wanted was to allow Americans to buy anything from anywhere in the world, and when the notion, without any help to the working class. This was one of the things that I objected to most at the time. And then they didn't make it easier for people to form unions.
Right.
And then they also ended, and I say they, the Clinton administration, but the Reagan administration started this, they ended any kind of support for anti-monopolization, antitrust.
That's right.
So if you take those three pieces together, that is, you're opening our economy to foreign trade. That means lower wage nations and lower wage people, which is fine. But at the same time, you're not allowing unionization, you're discouraging unionization, you're allowing companies to bust unions, and you're allowing companies to monopolize. That combination is deadly.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Great in what you're saying, not speaking to the truth of it. Yeah. We have some questions that were taken from the audience I want to share. And here's a student named Andy who says, Some economists argue that the rise of automation and artificial intelligence will lead to widespread job loss in the coming years. What's your take on this issue, and what policies do you think could mitigate that?
Well, Andy, wherever you are, I think that that automation, we've had automation now for probably 200 years, various forms of automation, more and more of it. And then artificial intelligence undoubtedly is the next stage. But what it means is not fewer jobs. It means that people will be doing different kinds of work. And the question is, what will that work look like? Will they be paid enough? Just do this thought experiment with me. Supposing there's a product on the market after artificial intelligence really gets going, and it's called the I-everything. It's not an iPad, it's not an iPhone, it's the I-everything. It will do, I'm holding it right here, let's pretend. And it will do everything. It will literally do everything. Everything you need. You can just say, I need a refrigerator, boom, you'll get a refrigerator. Now this I-everything, in many respects, is a blessing. The problem is nobody will have any money to buy it. Because there is no longer any way of earning money, because the I-everything will literally do everything. So the problem, the challenge of figuring out how to give people what they need to purchase the I-everything becomes the central challenge.
Right.
Well, that's a cartoon version of what we will be facing.
Great. And you're going to put that in your 2024 platform.
Yes,
right?
that's part of the platform.
Another question from a student named Elizabeth. As someone with a toddler at home, I think a lot about my child's future education. Given the rising costs of higher education, what do you think when people say college may not be worth it and may even become obsolete?
Well, I would say that, unfortunately, a 4-year college degree from a good university, not a great, doesn't have to be great, is now considered to be the only way into a secure middle-class job. I hope that doesn't stay the case, because we used to, in the 50s, well, I remember, I'm that old, we used to have a vocational technical sector. And we began, Germany has been doing this for years, we began to develop the alternative to a 4-year college degree. We don't have it. In fact, that vocational technical sector has unfortunately lost a lot of ground and a lot of public support because of this conceit that everybody has got to have a 4-year college degree. Now, having said that, let me also say, we have proprietary colleges that are for-profit, that are making a lot of money off of people who should never have been hoodwinked into going to them. And it really is a fraud. And a lot of people don't finish them. Right. They end up with a great deal of student debt. And it's a problem. It's a very cruel problem for society. Yeah. Well, I have a lot more to say about it, okay. But I'll stop there.
Good. Well, mindful of time, I'm going to ask you a question about how you feel about retiring from teaching.
Terrible. No, I decided that, and David Wilson, the marvelous dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy, I don't know, many of you don't know him. Let's have a hand. He is really a wonderful, wonderful asset. David has already, in a short time, had a huge positive effect on the entire campus, not just the Goldman School. But what I explained to David when I told him that I was thinking about leaving was not that I wanted to leave teaching, but I wanted to leave when I still felt I could do it well. I didn't want to feel that I ever got to the point where I was not giving what students what they deserve. I thought that, to me, that felt like a miserable place to be. So I arbitrarily decided I would.
And we were just talking about how the word retirement is the wrong word.
It's a terrible word.
You don't say, oh, I'm a former child. You know, like, I am who I was is who I am now. Whoa, no, you're who you are now. And
I think the reason that you, Arlie, and I have such a hard time with that word is because for most people in this society, work to earn a living is not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, most people look forward to the day when they can retire and they don't have to do what they don't want to do to make ends meet. But we are in the rare and privileged little group of people for whom work is a calling.
Yeah, that's right.
And I could, so I can never really give it up.
Yeah. You know, in your thinking out what you're going to do, I thought you needed a little help. And so my husband Adam and I got on chat GPD. You know, you were talking, you know, about that little everything, the I, everything. Well, we have chat GPT, and here's what it said. You'll be glad to know. Robert Reich, author and former Secretary of Labor, is retiring from teaching at the University of California, Berkeley. What should he do next? This is the answer. As an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions or feelings, but I can suggest some possibilities for Robert Reich based on his interests and background. Continue to write and publish books.
That's very insightful.
Start a podcast or a YouTube channel. Teach online courses or platforms such as Udemy or Coursera. Get involved in activism.
See, this proves everything I had thought about ChatGPT. It is conventional wisdom boiled down to boredom.
Yeah. But it says that you should go into virtual reality and augmented reality.
You know, you don't really appreciate this. I am a hologram.
A hole of what?
But I'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
It says to create video games too. And then it says modestly, these are just a few examples, but ultimately the possibilities are endless. And it's up to Robert Reich to decide.
Thank you very much, ChatGPT.
Yeah. So, what is up next for you?
Well, I don't think that there is a different life. I am going to enjoy not having quite the deadlines and quite the pressure that I have right now, but I will stay very, very busy. And my wonderful, dear partner, wife, Perian Flaherty, who is around here somewhere. Perian, where are you? Well, she's too shy to stand up, or maybe she stood up and I didn't notice. But I'm just looking forward to spending more time with you, Perian.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. So, and you're also, I think, going to do more films. I think we talked about earlier, right?
Well, I don't know. Jake Kornbluth, who I think is here, was the director of the 2 films that I have done. And he taught me a lot, one thing which is that it's extraordinarily difficult to do a documentary, extraordinarily. It is very important, if you are doing visual type videos or film or documentaries, to do it well and with the knowledge of how people process information. And this is something that perhaps I should spend a moment on.
Yeah, do.
Because one of my sons, Sam, runs... Is Sam here? No. Sam runs something called collegehumor.com.
Okay. Yeah.
And he makes a lot of videos, and they're very, very funny. I mean, they really are funny. But he, years ago, I think about 10 years ago, said to me, "Dad, if you want to really reach my generation, I appreciate and respect the books you've written, but if you really want to reach my generation, you've got to think about film and video and social media." And Sam has spent a lot of time coaching me. Not that I've learned very much, but he's coached me. And I understand that there is a different set of receptors this is a crass generalization about Gen Z and young people, but young people are incredibly sharp, especially in terms of visual cues. And I really have wanted to, and I have been experimenting with those, and I'll continue. So film and video and so on is definitely something that I want to do more of, but figure out how it can be done, how it should be done. And let me just say one more thing, and that is I work with a fabulous group of talented young people in a nonprofit called Inequality Media. And yes, absolutely. Heather Lofthouse and several others are here. And it's been a great privilege for me to work with this group. I've learned so much, particularly about the visual portrayal and communication of ideas.
Yeah. And if you could put that together with some of your basic premises, that democracy isn't something you're born into, it's something we have to work to keep. And going back to the serious side of you, I know it concerns you that we've come this close to losing democracy, and the danger isn't gone.
It is not gone. It is there, partly because of this impacted and increasingly desperate and angry working class we talked about. But it's also there because we have a few politicians who are very skilled at marketing, at promotion, and have no scruples whatsoever. And that combination is also dangerous. It's a tinderbox. You put together a working class that is angry and frustrated, together with a few politicians that are very gifted at marketing and promotion and have no scruples at all and will do anything to win. And we are in a different universe. People talk to me, and may I say something about Donald Trump? I try not to, but I have to say this. Because the next 18 months, or 19 months, are going to be really tough in the following respect. we have a man who, in my view, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, and I don't carry my opinions into the classroom, I really don't, but I have the stage, so why not, right?
Yeah. You're retiring.
Right. In my opinion, he committed treason in public. A man who committed treason in the open, in public, and who is running for president and the head of the pack right now in the Republican Party, still has not been indicted for his treasonous acts, and is likely, because of everything we know about him, to do the same thing over again. Why would we expect anything different in terms of 2024? Now, there is, in the 14th Amendment, Section 3, a clause that says, if you have held public office in this country and you've made an oath to uphold the Constitution, but you have engaged in insurrection against this country, you may not ever hold public office again. Now, secretaries of state over the next 6 months in every state in this union are going to have to make a decision as to whether Donald Trump is on the ballot in their state. And I think, based on the 14th Amendment, Section 3, they should not allow him to run again.
So is this being discussed? I mean, do you feel like...
I don't think it's being discussed nearly enough. Most of the media conversation about the election is the same old. Who's ahead, who's behind, is it DeSantis, is it Trump, but nothing about what I just talked about. That we have a man who is likely to use the same techniques he used before. And how, as a society, as a democracy, should we respond to that? No, I haven't seen that. I want there to be more. I hope there is more media discussion of that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we've come to a point where we're going to have to hold that thought.
Arlie, can I just say one more thing? Because I'm not going to talk about Trump anymore. I'm just going to. I want to say something about Berkeley.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't. I have had the privilege of being a student or a faculty member at some wonderful institutions.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Dartmouth and Yale and Oxford and Harvard and Brandeis. I have never been associated with an institution of higher education that is nearly as good, as strong, as committed to the right things,
Yeah.
as committed to education as the University of California, Berkeley.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes we lose track of the fact that this is the best public university, maybe in the world, and we are all privileged to be here.
Yeah.
It is such a privilege for all of us.
Yeah.
So thank the cosmos for having the University of California, Berkeley.
And now we're going to hear from David Wilson, the head of the Goldman School of Public Policy. That's good.
All right. I've been I've been dean of the Goldman School for 2 years now. And Professor Reich, you've never said no to me. And you've always been willing to engage the campus and engage big ideas. And this is just an honor and a privilege to actually hear your thoughts about democracy. And I think we all learned a little bit more this evening about what our charge is and what the value of the University of California, Berkeley is. So please give Professor Reich and Professor Hochschild another round of applause. That's outstanding.
Thank you.
I really am honored to serve as Dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy and a professor of public policy and political science. But I want to acknowledge the real change makers in the room. If the faculty of the Goldman School could please stand up. If you are a staff member at the Goldman School, please stand up. If you are a student in the Goldman School, please stand up. If you are an alumni of the Goldman School of Public Policy, please stand up. If you're on our advisory board for the Goldman School, please stand up. Thank you to each and every one of you for doing the hard work of democracy and leading the Goldman School in our mission to make the world a better place. But I've got one more. If you're a student at the University of California, Berkeley, please stand up. If you're a faculty member at the University of California, Berkeley, please stand up. If you're an alumni of the University of California, Berkeley, please stand up. If you're on our staff at the University of California, Berkeley, please stand up. If you are a friend of the University of California, Berkeley, please stand up. You all are the change makers. You're the ones who are really making a difference in society. And Bob, you're absolutely right about the power of the University of California, Berkeley. Change makers, a real title here. It's meaningful to us. It's a big enterprise, and it takes a brilliant mind to help run the University of California, Berkeley. Many of you all know our Chancellor, Carol Christ, but there's also another Chief Academic Officer who you may not know, and that's our Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost, Ben Hermelin. And I'd like to ask Ben to come to the stage. Please welcome Ben.
Thanks, David. Bob, I'd like to invite you to join us at the podium, please. Okay. That's great. It's my honor to represent Chancellor Christ, who had a pre-existing engagement tonight. The Chancellor and the UC Berkeley Honors Committee recently voted to bestow the prestigious Berkeley citation upon Professor Robert Reich. This citation is awarded on very special occasions to someone whose great achievements the university salutes and whose presence honors and benefits the campus. The nomination packet for this candidate was a hefty and powerful one. Let me share just a few quotes that underscore why Bob Reich so richly deserves this honor. A former GSI from Bob's Wealth and Poverty class, Michael Weafe, wrote that Professor Reich has had the biggest impact on me, serving as an insightful mentor and inspiring leadership and action in the world around me. Another former GSI, Karen Martin, wrote, "You know you're witnessing a special talent when you see a lecture hall of 500 plus undergraduates riveted by an hour-long lecture." And former Dean Henry Brady wrote that Robert Reich's work goes beyond the call of duty. He deserves the Berkeley citation more than anyone I know. We all agree with that. Bob, you are not only a national treasure, you're also a true campus citizen. This university is a better place because of you. So on behalf of the entire UC Berkeley community, it is my honor to say a collective thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Take it in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. I appreciate it. Good night.
Yeah, you laugh. Yeah. So, yeah.